Hello, everyone. David from Mortgage Choice. It is Tuesday, the 3rd of October, and the Reserve Bank announced this afternoon that they were leaving rates on hold. This is the fourth month in a row that they've left interest rates as they are, so the cash rate will remain at 4.10%. And it means those of us with mortgages, we don't have to worry about higher repayments. And for those of you trying to borrow, it means that your borrowing capacity remains intact. So great news all around. This, I guess, supports the idea that we are at the top of the cycle or very close to it at least. And the longer we go with interest rates going sideways, the better chance we have of being at the top of the cycle. And hopefully the next movement with interest rates is going down. And the prediction now is that we'll start to see interest rates drop in the second half of 2024. So for those of you having a tough time with these higher rates, and there will be quite a few clients out there that are struggling a bit with reduced cash flow. There's hopefully a light at the end of the tunnel, and we'll see a bit of reprieve in 6 to 12 months. So if you can hold out, then fantastic. Hopefully it's going to be better in the near future. The Reserve Bank did make a few announcements. I'll take you through what they've advised and try and give you a very brief summary of their reasoning for why we've left interest rates on hold. We did get, this is the first announcement with Michelle Bullock, the new Reserve Bank governor. There was some concern that she might come in and want to put a bit of a scare into the system and increase interest rates when she first starts. But she's decided today to leave them on hold. And here is why. Basically, high interest rates are working to establish a more sustainable balance between supply and the demand in the economy. In the end, we've seen interest rates increase by 4% over the last 18 months, and they're waiting to see what impact that's going to have on the economy. It normally takes between 3 to 6 months for interest rate rises to affect the economy with reducing people's spending, and they're starting to see the effects of that coming through, and they'll see more and more of that over the next 6 to 12 months. And the next slide that we'll talk about, the fixed rate expiries, there are a massive amount of clients still on fixed rates that haven't yet gone on to these higher variable rates that the rest of us are experiencing. So we'll talk to that. Inflation in Australia has passed its peak, but it's still too high and will remain so for some time yet. So basically they're indicating that yes, they acknowledge that the current inflation rate, I think it's 5.2%, is still higher than they want to see. Their target band is sitting between 2 and 3%, but we're still about 12 to 18 months away from meeting that target band. They go on to talk about and returning the inflation to 2 to 3% in that target range, and that inflation is coming down. So they are acknowledging that the interest rate increases that we've seen have had an effect on the economy, that inflation is coming back down as they would expect. But they've also, at the end, promised further tightening in the monetary policy or further increase in interest rates if they get concerned about inflation again. So they're always leaving the door open to increase interest rates if they need to, but hopefully we won't see that anymore, at least in this cycle. Now, I spoke earlier about the fixed rate expiries. This slide here is a big indicator to me of why the rates have been left on hold. We had a huge amount of clients sitting on fixed rates that came off between June 2022 and June 2023. But we've got an even bigger section of clients that are coming off fixed rates between December 2023 and June 2025. So a huge amount of our mortgage holders in Australia are still sitting on fixed rates that have yet to experience these higher variable rates. And that is a massive reason why the Reserve Bank is likely going to leave rates on hold, because there's still so many clients that haven't yet experienced the impact of the higher rates. So my expectation, at least, is that we will not see any further rate rises, that rates will continue to go sideways, and then we'll start to see them drop later part of next year. And here's another indication of why that's the case. So this is a chart that shows the measure of CPI updated on the 27th of September. You can see that here's where we peaked back in December of last year, and we're now coming back down into the range of roughly 5%. I think it's sitting at 5.2. And this target band here of 2 to 3% is where the Reserve Bank wants us to sit. All right, so that's where we're heading. For those of you that are economy nerds and finance nerds and are paying attention to the news, you would have heard last week that inflation actually increased. And that was more so relating to headline inflation, where they take into account more volatile items like holiday travel, petrol, and other short-term issues that might affect the cost of goods and services. So there was an uptick, slight uptick in overhead inflation, but the general median inflation is coming down. Now, another thing that we talk about quite a bit is the increase in population. And I think this population increase has a massive impact on what I do for a living, and that's help people buy houses. And this is also why I've said for the last 12 months that I didn't think the property market would go down too much during that massive increase in interest rates over the last 18 months. And this is the big reason why. We've got such a huge increase in population growth, mainly due to a massive amount of migrants coming into the country. So Cameron Kushner is an economist for realestate.com.au, and he put out this tweet, it would have been a week or two ago, showing that we had a massive 2.4% increase in population year on year, which is 626,000 more people in Australia than there were in the previous year. So huge tick up. And the main reason for the massive increase would likely be because of the pause that we had throughout COVID. So we're making up for lost time. But it just further supports this idea that while we've got a very small supply of housing because we're not building as many new houses as we once were, and we've got this massive increase in population growth, we've got a huge amount of demand for very little supply. And that tweet was further supported by Shane Oliver at AMP, another very popular and well-known economist, also saying that we've had in excess of 500,000 migrants coming into the country. And Cam Kushner, shortly after his first tweet, made note that some of the numbers, or sort of the population growth of, say, 600,000, some of that was from babies being born in Australia, but the majority were from people coming from overseas that don't currently own a home, and that it will put massive pressure on the rental market and also just the housing market in general. All right, so when we talk about property values increasing, this is a big reason why. When we also look at issues around inflation, the fact that rental properties and the cost of rent is increasing, I think 10 to 15% over the last 12 months for most major cities, that's having a huge impact on inflation. So while we're trying to get inflation down, we're actually having some reverse pressure put on inflation because of the increase in rent costs. Now, property values, I shared this slide last month, but I think it's timely to discuss it again. Every time we see a decrease or a pause in interest rate rises, we see an increase in house prices. So what the red bar graph is showing is the cash rate, the movement in the variable rate cycle. And the blue line is showing the increase in property values in Sydney specifically over the last, 40 years or so. So every time we've seen basically the peak of the cycle, the peak of the interest rate cycle where interest rates start to come back down, we then see a correlating increase in the value of properties. And my expectation is that will continue to be the case. We've already seen property prices increase in the metro area of Melbourne, and I think that they'll continue to do so as the idea that we've reached the top of the cycle and interest rates are plateauing. As soon as they start coming back down, the market, I believe, will start to tick up quite fast. For our first home buyers out there, one of the things that I want you to be mindful of, I get a lot of first home buyers that are concerned about the number of seats available from the federal Family Home Guarantee Scheme. My expectation is that we won't see any issues or constraints in the number of seats available for those looking to apply. I think the federal scheme is a fantastic scheme that benefits both the government by helping people get into homes faster and also clients by being able to avoid mortgage insurance and needing less deposit. So it's a fantastic scheme that works for both sides, and I don't see the government ending it anytime soon. And if we ever got to a point where the allotted seats were running low, my expectation is the government would follow suit by increasing those numbers again and again and again, because it works for both parties very well. The other advice I have for first home buyers is to start creating a budget. I know it sounds easy to do, but a lot of clients that I speak to don't yet have a budget in place. And I really think it's important that you know what your outgoings are and how much you can potentially save. Because when you have a rough idea of how much you can save per month, and you come to me and we talk about the savings required to purchase your first house, if you're $20,000 or $30,000 away from meeting your target, knowing how much you can save each month is going to tell me how many months and tell you how many months you might be away from reaching that goal. So creating a budget, I think, is super helpful. And there's a fantastic website by the federal government called Money Smart. And I highly recommend that you jump onto that. There's some great calculators on there, including a budget calculator that you can use to kind of help set some goals and manage your money a bit better. The other thing for first home buyers and for any clients looking to purchase for that matter is to get a meeting booked in early. It's never too early to book in a meeting. Even if a client is 2 years away from purchasing, I would recommend that you book in time to have a chat with us. At least get an idea of what you need to have in place and what you need to have ready to go. For upgraders, if you're thinking of upgrading, call your mortgage broker first and then call your local estate agent. These two areas here are the two biggest, milestones or key checkpoints that you want to have when you're looking to upgrade your home, because you need to know what your borrowing capacity is for the next purchase, and you need to know what you're going to sell your house for, or have at least a rough idea of what you're going to sell your house for. All right, so speak to your broker, speak to your estate agent. For investors, we have a webinar coming up on the 11th of October. So what is this, next Wednesday at 7:30? The last investment webinar we had, I think it was November of last year. We had 70 or 80 people attending. It was a massive event for us. So if you're keen to learn more about investing, or if you're thinking of buying an investment property, again, even if it's 2 years down the track, join us. The webinar lasts between 30 and 45 minutes. We've got a local accountant that will be joining us as well from Casey Partners. And they'll be talking to you about the benefits from a tax position and the concerns that you need to have from a tax position. And then we'll obviously, as brokers, talk to you about how to release equity, how to purchase with no cash, potentially how to buy a self-managed super fund or property in your self-managed super fund. So if you're thinking of investing, we'll have the details below and you can join us and get registered. Thanks again for your time today. I know I've gone a bit over what I normally do, but thanks for listening, and we'll be back to you next month. Thank you.